In the dusty town of Mbale, Acheng carried his child, but also the weight of his cruelty. 9 months of pain, swelling feet, empty nights, and he never once held her hand. While she cried in contractions, he laughed at parties. But fate was watching. The baby she bore alone became the very reason her life turned, from abandoned to admired. Today she's the voice for millions, and he, just a forgotten name. Zola was only 9 years old when she first said out loud, "I want to be a doctor." Her eyes sparkled with hope as she imagined herself wearing a white coat, helping sick people, making her village proud. But not everyone around her saw that dream the same way. Her stepfather, Kamau, laughed in her face. "Doctors are not for girls," he scoffed. "Your place is in the kitchen, not in some hospital." At first, Zola didn't understand why her dream made him so angry. But slowly, his actions made it painfully clear. He began tearing up her school books, one by one. Sometimes, when she came back from school, she'd find her notebooks missing, her drawings ripped, her pencils snapped in two. He'd call her useless, say things like, "No man wants a stubborn girl who talks too much." His words cut deep, but Zola held on to her dream like a secret treasure. Every night she would lie in bed and imagine herself in a big hospital room, helping a crying child, holding someone's hand, saving a life. Those dreams were her escape from the harsh reality of home, a place where silence was safer than speaking, and hope felt like a dangerous thing to have. Zola's mother tried to protect her, but she too was trapped in fear. So Zola learned early that if she wanted to chase her dreams, she'd have to fight for them, even inside her own home. Zola didn't have books anymore. Kamau had torn them all, one after the other, like tearing up her future with his bare hands. But she didn't give up. Deep inside her, something refused to stay silent. She wanted to learn, no matter what. So quietly, without anyone knowing, she started teaching herself. She would collect scraps of old newspapers that people threw away, folding them neatly and hiding them under her mattress like precious treasure. Sometimes the words were torn, sometimes smudged, but to Zola, they were gold. She would sneak out during the day and sit near the open windows of her neighbors' homes, listening closely when their children had private lessons. She couldn't afford a teacher, but she turned herself into one. She memorized everything she heard, the way the tutor explained math problems, how he read stories, how he asked questions. She would whisper the answers to herself, hiding behind a wall like a quiet shadow. At home, she had no notebooks, no pens, but she had charcoal. She'd take little pieces from the cooking fire and use them to write on the walls of her room. Formulas, new words, tiny dreams, scratched in black. Her fingers were always dusty, her palms stained, but her heart was wide open. She taught herself the alphabet again, did math problems over and over, and even made her own timetable on the back of an old cereal box. Every mark she made on the wall was a message to herself. "I'm still here. I'm still learning." And even though no one clapped for her, even though no one said, "Well done," she kept going. Because in the silence, in the hiding, in the stolen moments of learning, Zola was quietly fighting back. Every afternoon, Zola would pass by the marketplace on her way back from fetching water. She always walked a little slower near one stall, the one with the bright cloths and the smell of roasted groundnuts. It was run by a warm, loud woman named Mama Binta. Most people knew her for her jokes and spicy peanuts, but Mama Binta had sharp eyes. And one day, she noticed something others didn't, the way Zola stared too long at old book covers used as wrappers for food, her eyes hungry for more than just a meal. Mama Binta started asking gentle questions. "You like books, eh?" Zola nodded, a little shy at first. She didn't say much, but Mama Binta could see it, the fire, the hunger to learn. The next week, Mama Binta did something small, something that would change everything. She handed Zola an old, worn-out science textbook. "It's missing a few pages, but the words still work," she smiled. Zola held it like a gift from heaven. From then on, every Friday, Mama Binta would give her something, a grammar book one week, a broken calculator the next, even some lined paper someone had thrown away. "I don't have much," she would say, "but knowledge shouldn't go to waste." And Zola soaked it all up. She stayed up late reading under the moonlight, sounding out the words, copying down pages by hand so she wouldn't lose anything. Mama Binta never asked for anything in return, but her kindness made Zola feel seen, like someone finally believed in her. That simple act, handing a child a book, became the first real step towards something so much bigger. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to notice you, one person to say, "I see you, keep going." And Zola did. With every book Mama Binta gave her, Zola grew stronger, braver, and more determined. What started as one woman's kindness became the spark that lit Zola's journey, a journey that was just beginning. Zola had just turned 15 when everything changed. One evening, she overheard Kamau talking to a man in the living room. Their voices were low, serious. She crept closer and listened. Her heart dropped. They were arranging her marriage to a man nearly 50 years old, a butcher from the next town, a man she had never met, never even seen. Kamau was smiling as he counted some money. Zola wasn't a daughter to him. She was a price tag. Her whole body went cold. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat in the dark corner of her room, shaking. The wedding was supposed to happen in a few days. No one asked her. No one cared what she wanted. Her dream of becoming a doctor, of finishing school, of choosing her own future, all of it was being sold away. That night, Zola made a decision no child should ever have to make. She waited until everyone was asleep. Her heart was pounding so loud she thought it might wake the house. She had no money, no bag, no shoes, just the clothes on her back and the burning thought, "I have to get out." She stepped into the night barefoot, her feet touching the cold dirt, every step filled with fear. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she had to run before it was too late. She passed through bushes, jumped over fences, and walked for hours in silence, her eyes wide in the dark, her mind racing. Every sound made her flinch, but something kept her going, the dream she had held onto for so long. She wasn't just running away from a forced marriage, she was running toward freedom. Zola didn't feel brave that night, she felt terrified, but in truth, it was the bravest thing she had ever done. That night, a barefoot girl with nothing but hope and courage decided her life would not be owned. Not by Kamau, not by anyone. Zola had been walking for what felt like forever. Her feet were cut and bleeding, her clothes dusty, and her body weak from hunger. But she kept moving, holding on to the small hope that somewhere out there, life had to be different. Just outside Nyanda town, she collapsed near a roadside stall. A kind woman selling fruit noticed her, and within minutes, a social worker named Auntie Grace was called. Auntie Grace didn't ask too many questions at first. She simply wrapped a shawl around Zola's shoulders, gave her water, and said gently, "You're safe now." Those were words Zola had never really heard before. She was taken to a shelter that cared for young girls who had run away from dangerous homes. Girls like her. It was the first time she saw a place where no one yelled at her, no one tore her books, and no one tried to sell her off. The next morning, they handed her a school uniform, a faded blue dress with a white collar. Zola stared at it for a long time. She had dreamed of wearing one like it since she was a little girl. When she finally put it on, her reflection in the mirror brought tears to her eyes. "Now I really feel like I belong somewhere," she whispered. For the first time in her life, she sat in a real classroom. The chairs were old, the blackboard chipped, but to Zola, it was heaven. She held a pen again. She had notebooks. She had teachers who actually smiled at her. She didn't have to hide behind windows or write with charcoal anymore. Every lesson felt like a gift. Zola studied harder than anyone. She arrived early, stayed late, and helped others who were behind. The spark inside her, the one that had survived torn books, silence, and fear, finally had a place to grow. She started dreaming again, not just for herself, but for other girls too. For the first time, Zola didn't feel like a runaway. She felt like a student. She felt seen. And for the first time in a long time, she felt free. Zola worked harder than anyone. While other students took breaks, she kept reading. While others studied for exams, she studied for life. Every test she took, she topped. Science, math, English, she was always number one. Teachers began calling her the future doctor. The shelter staff couldn't stop smiling whenever her name was mentioned. Her dream, the one she had whispered to herself so many nights, was finally within reach. She got accepted into a top university, a full scholarship. Everything she had worked for was finally happening. But just when it felt like her new life was beginning, her old one came crawling back. One morning, Zola was called into the shelter office. There sat a serious-looking woman holding a letter. "Your stepfather, Kamau," she said slowly, "has filed a legal complaint. He's claiming you're still under his care, and he's trying to stop you from leaving for university." Zola felt like the ground beneath her had cracked open. After everything he had done, tearing her books, trying to marry her off, forcing her to run barefoot into the night, now he was trying to take away the one thing she had left, her future. The case went to court. It was terrifying. Zola had never seen a courtroom before. She was just a teenager. Kamau stood on the other side, dressed well, lying with confidence. He told the judge he was her guardian, that she was unstable, that the shelter had taken her without permission. It was all lies, and Zola knew it. But how do you fight a man who's older, louder, and backed by papers? Then came the moment that changed everything. Zola asked the judge if she could speak. Her voice was soft at first, but it grew stronger with every word. She told her story, the torn books, the forced marriage, the night she ran away. She didn't cry. She stood tall. Everyone in that courtroom listened. Even the judge wiped away tears. Someone in the room recorded her speech on their phone. By the next day, it was all over social media. Zola didn't just win the case. She made the world listen. Her fight wasn't just for herself anymore. It was for every girl who had been silenced. And that was only the beginning. Zola stood in the courtroom, wearing a borrowed dress and shaking hands. She was just 18. No lawyer, no family beside her, just her truth and the courage she had built over years of pain. Kamau sat on the other side with a smirk, confident she would lose. But Zola wasn't there to beg. She was there to speak. And when the judge finally allowed her to talk, the whole room went silent. At first, her voice trembled. "My name is Zola," she began. "I was never your daughter, Kamau. You never treated me like one." She spoke of torn books, of being mocked for dreaming, of how she taught herself from scraps, how she ran barefoot into the night to escape being sold as a child bride. Her words were raw, real, no fancy speeches, just truth pouring from a broken but unshaken heart. The judge leaned forward. The audience held their breath. And as she spoke, something shifted in the room. Her voice grew louder, stronger, more sure. "I am not property. I am not for sale. I am not going back." By the time she finished, the courtroom was in tears. Even the judge wiped his eyes before speaking. "Young lady," he said softly, "you are one of the bravest souls I have ever met." Someone in the back had recorded everything on their phone. They uploaded it that same day. By nightfall, Zola's courtroom speech had gone viral. Thousands of people across Africa shared her video. Students, teachers, even celebrities. Her words became quotes. Her face became hope. News stations started calling. People wrote messages like, "You spoke for all of us. I cried watching this. You are a hero." Zola didn't expect fame. She only wanted her freedom. But that moment, standing in court, speaking her truth, changed everything. She had fought her biggest battle alone and turned her pain into power. The world wasn't just watching now, it was listening. And Zola's voice, once silenced in a small village, had become a roar heard across the continent. 1 year after that powerful courtroom moment, Zola had become more than just a student. She was a symbol of strength. Her face was now everywhere. Giant billboards across cities showed her in her Lusaka University uniform, smiling with pride. Buses rolled through towns with her story written on the sides. From silence to strength, meet Zola. Even magazines and school books featured her journey as a story of hope. But the most powerful image wasn't in the big cities. It was in the small dirt roads of Makoma Village, the very place she once cried herself to sleep, the place where her dreams were called foolish. Right there, on the outer wall of the village market, someone painted a mural of Zola, standing tall in her blue university jacket, holding a book like a sword. Underneath it were the words, "She rose." People gathered to take pictures. Children pointed and smiled. The same neighbors who once looked away when Kamau yelled at her now clapped when her name was mentioned. And Kamau, he couldn't avoid her anymore. Every day, he had to walk past her face, on walls, on posters, on TV screens. The girl he tried to silence had become a voice too loud for even him to ignore. At first, he pretended not to care. He looked down, but the whispers followed him. "That's her stepfather," people said. "The one who tried to marry her off." Shame, the very thing he once used against Zola, now hung heavy on his own shoulders, and there was no escape. Zola never went back to yell at him. She didn't need to. Her success said everything. She didn't seek revenge, only transformation. The village that once stayed quiet when she suffered was now cheering, clapping, even crying when she spoke on the radio. She had become their pride, their proof that greatness can rise from the very soil where cruelty once grew. Every billboard, every mural, every bus that carried her face reminded the world, and Kamau, that girls are not meant to be owned or broken. They are meant to shine, and Zola was shining brighter than ever. Today, Zola is no longer just a student or a survivor. She's a leader. She started her own NGO called No Girl Left Behind, and through it, she helps girls who are going through the same pain she once did. Girls who are being forced into marriage. Girls who are being told to stay out of school. Girls who feel like no one is listening. Zola listens, and she acts. Her team travels to remote villages, talks to parents, rescues girls in danger, and gives them a chance to dream again, just like she was once given. She helps them get into schools, find safe shelters, and rebuild their futures with dignity. She also trains teachers and community leaders, showing them why educating girls doesn't just change one life, it changes everything. People often ask her why she helps so many when she could have just moved on and lived her own life in peace. Zola always gives the same answer. Because no girl should have to run barefoot into the night to find her freedom. She never speaks with hate about Kamau or those who hurt her. That's not who she is. Her mission isn't revenge, it's healing. She turned her pain into purpose. Her scars didn't break her. They became her armor. Now, when people hear the name Zola, they don't just think of one girl. They think of a movement. They think of thousands of girls walking into classrooms with their heads held high. They think of courage, hope, and unstoppable strength. Zola didn't just change her story, she's rewriting the future for so many others. And she's just getting started.